entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
4 rules you need to remember. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan. Follow my lead and you'll be fine.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley. What's up, guys? Long time no see.
Yeah, a long time no see. What'd you guys do with all this time?
We got some work done, played a little, mixture of business and pleasure, but October is going to be a tough month from now on.
After we come out there the first of the month, you guys just went right on after it every week pretty much.
Yeah. And by the way, I haven't told you about that. There's a thing they do there. They have a buffet type setting. This one's called buffet. And when you come here next time, we're going to do that because it's cool. You show up early, you go inside early, and you eat dinner. The kind of dinner that we had when we were there, but you have even more to pick from. And you can eat as much as you want, desserts and all.
Wow.
And then all the monsters come in and chat with you and give you a hard time. It is cool. Then you go in the park early and go on the mazes before everybody else.
That's even better.
So
you don't get ran over that way.
When you guys are here, I definitely want to do that with you guys. If you guys decide to do that.
That's like if I have a choice in that. You've destroyed Amanda. You guys have spoiled her to death. All that you have to do is say, when you guys going to come? And she'd say, tell us when.
Yeah.
October.
Yeah. October.
She enjoyed that. That meal that day, everywhere we eat was amazing. But that fried chicken and that mashed potatoes there at Knott's Berry Farm, oh, man, that was a mom kind of dinner, you know?
That chicken's more famous than Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I see why.
It's older,
don't
too.
Get me wrong. I love KFC,
Yeah.
but that was nowhere close to KFC. Those mashed potatoes, I think Amanda could OD on those mashed potatoes and gravy.
Oh, yeah.
Those were to die for.
Those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, here in Southern California, in the Orange County area, we have a park called Knott's Berry Farm, just down the street from Disneyland. But we do go quite a bit to Knott's Berry Farm, where we go and have a good time as a family. And they have this event every year, starting in the middle of September, called Knott's Scary Farm. And it's awesome. I never thought I would get into it, but I love the place. I love the park in general, but I love the event. Tawny's actually thinking about applying for a job there as a scare actor.
That would be a good job as well. She'd enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're good at what they do. I'll say that for them. You can tell they've got a lot of experience doing it.
And she started a YouTube channel called The Scare Zone, Enter the Fog.
Scare Zone, Enter the Fog.
Yeah. And she's just now putting the videos on it. We shot a bunch of footage when we were there. So she's going to have a lot of material to work from and talk to some of the scare actors, and they gave her some ideas on what to do. So that's another thing we did, but we had such a great time. October is going to be tough from now on.
Yeah, we enjoyed our time out there. That was really fun. And like I said before, you know me, I'm not a real big going to those places.
Oh,
big
I wasn't
theme
either.
parks in general. But that was, especially the Saturday night. Friday night was good, but Saturday night, when they had it full operation, it was great. I really enjoyed myself.
It's so funny. We went balls to the wall. We lit the candle at both ends on this whole thing, and it didn't happen in the middle, but we all got sick at the very end. I think we knocked our immune systems down quite a bit, and we all got colds and weren't feeling too good for a few days. I'm still at the very end of it, and that's why we didn't have a show, I think, last week. So I'm going to have to push the mute button, cough every now and then. Definitely going to do that every year.
I have to say that we wore Frank and Amanda out so well that when they finally got back to Kentucky, they stayed in a hotel for a couple of days to recuperate before they drove back home.
We didn't land that morning until 10:30 in Lexington. And I told Amanda, I said, neither one of us had any sleep. So I told her, I said, we're not driving back. About 2 hours back from the airport there. So I told her, I said, we're not going to chance it. And so we made some phone calls and went and found a nice motel and just got some rest.
I would like to welcome our new members. Last couple of days, we got a lot of new members. That's awesome. So I want to welcome you guys. And we got a lot of former members that came back, which I really appreciate it. And they were telling me they were members like a year or two ago. And they came back in and they said, wow, this thing's changed. There's so much more information. This is awesome. It was better than they remembered, because we're always putting new material on there.
Yeah, I could imagine going a year and not being in there and just going in now and looking at it, the difference. It's not even close to being what it was.
Nancy put together Cafe Press for our logo, because we've had a lot of people ask, why don't you sell hats? Why don't you sell coffee cups? Why don't you sell other merchandise with the logo on it? Because they want to share their enthusiasm and support for the Breeders' Academy. So Nancy's been working on that, and we put together a few logos, and we were talking about maybe some others that we're going to do too. So you can actually go on there and order, and you can customize these products too. You can actually go in there and change the colors. If you go on my Facebook's groups page, there's some links that will take you to these pages where you can order the stuff and check out the type of products that are available. This is just a handful of the products that are on there. I can't tell you how many different products that you can get with this particular logo or these logos.
They can do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
It's actually pretty cool. So I told Nancy we're going to order a bunch of this stuff just for ourselves. You want to say anything about that, Nancy, before we move on?
I've got my eye on the tan hat with the logo on it. They've got a white one that looks really neat too. So I've got my eye on that, and obviously a couple coffee cups as well. But yeah, it's exciting.
According to the website, they give a full guarantee. So if you don't like it, you can send it back, even if they're customized.
Yeah, they do good quality work.
Okay. The website is open for registration. So go to www.breedersacademy.com to join, and you'll see all the links. It'll take you to the registration page where you can actually join. But the last couple of days have been really good, and the members have really been joining. And so I really appreciate that. When you join, you'll have instant access to the website. You're going to have access to the masterclass videos, the founders program, and the members roundtables. There's a lot of information in there. It will take you years to get through it all, but it's all really good information. It'll help take you to the next step. So a lot of you guys may notice I'm getting a lot of emails going, where all the videos go on YouTube? We only keep a handful of videos on YouTube, like this live show here. It'll be on there for a little while, then eventually it'll disappear too. Most of the videos are on the website. They're all archived on the website for the members. So enjoy the ones that are there, because they don't stay there.
It's worth the membership just for all the videos you get, because there's a ton of videos in there. A lot of videos. And plus the master class.
Yeah, you got the masterclass videos, you got the members roundtables, the members Q&As, you got the archive of YouTube lives. So there's a lot there, not counting the podcast itself. And like I said, we're always putting on new information. And another thing I want to tell everybody too is, like this show here. Now, obviously, the information we're providing is on the video that we're doing live now. Will be available on YouTube for a while. But we also post it on the website right away as well. But along with the video are all the show notes. We have a lot of information attached to it. All the information that I pulled up for these particular topics are on the website too. So anything that's related to what we're talking about will be there. So I always encourage the members, although it's convenient sometimes to watch the shows when they're on YouTube, as they're on YouTube, you're really better off going inside the website and checking it out there, and then checking out the show notes that go with it. So I would encourage you to do that. And just go to www.breedersacademy.com, and that'll take you straight over there.
Hey, we've got Roxanne, who has already ordered from Cafe Press.
Oh, cool.
Let us know what you think.
If there's any issues, let me know, because then I can address them, or maybe that's not a product we'll carry there. But any feedback would be good. I really would appreciate that. This is a segment that I'm hoping to do more often. I don't know if we'll do it every show, but a lot of times I'll get questions from people and I'll see a trend on a particular topic. And one of the questions I've been getting lately when it comes to epigenetics is epigenetics all about farm management or caring for your birds or caring for your dogs? And Frank, that's what they think. They think it's part of the environment, but they actually think the environment is having an effect on the birds that are on the farm right now rather than what the birds are producing because of the environment. So I thought we'd address that.
Yeah, it's like this. If you read it in the way it's written out, you could misdrew a lot of it. You really could. By having it explained part by part helps break it down and understand it better.
Know that the environment changes the way genes are expressed. Now, let's say I brought chickens from Frank's house and I brought them to my place. The environment's not going to change the DNA of the birds that he gives me. Maybe how they survive their environment due to what they're exposed to and what they can tolerate and what they're resistant to may have an effect on them. But that environment is going to change what they produce, what genes are going to be expressed. And a lot of times we see this in that if you buy birds, let's say a trio from another breeder from across the country, and you get them to your place, although it doesn't change the birds you got, all of a sudden the offspring are different. You go like, I saw pictures of his birds and I saw videos. They look nothing like mine. And although they could be outcrosses, they could be crosses, they could have a lot of issues concerning contamination or mixing of blood, and that would change them certainly. But let's say you're dealing with an honest breeder who's actually producing really good birds, and they send them to you, but the offspring aren't coming out like they were coming on his farm. And I've seen that many times. It's not the breeder's fault, it's just how it is. So you're going to have to see what the phenotype is expressing, select according to the phenotype, and they may change. But if your selection's proper and you're doing a good job, you can actually make a family out of those, and they will become a different family. If you do it properly, you could possibly make them a better family than he had because of the lower number of genes and smaller number of birds. We talk about that all the time when it comes to improving a family through reduction. By reducing the number of birds, you actually improve the family if the selection is good and the birds you're starting off good. Dealing a lot with genetic drift. So the power is in your hands to either ruin them or make them something. But just know there's a good chance they may change.
Yeah, and a lot of people, this is the first thing they go to when this happens. They blame the breeder for selling them something else, a cross, or they added blood to them, or anything other than that. And it happens. I've seen it many times happen that way. But you incorporate the rest of it, the nutrition, the environment that they're in, the genetics, the selection, that's what Kenny was talking about. When you take that as a whole, that can be a big change later on with the birds themselves.
I saw someone talking about it the other day, and he was saying that epigenetics doesn't change the animal. Although it'll express different genes, it doesn't change the family. I'm here to tell you that if the traits are in the phenotype and they're expressed, that means they're selectable. Yeah. And if they're selectable, then they're changeable. So that idea is wrong. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's the only way we can improve them is through the phenotype. We look at the birds, you look at the dogs, whatever you're breeding, and whatever they're showing you is what you have to select from. If they're showing you a different trait, you're either selecting for it or you're culling it. You can determine the direction of that family. If they're expressing it, you can select it, you can change the family.
And a lot of times it's going to be bad stuff that's going to pop up rather than good, usually the way it goes.
I don't know if you guys can answer this, but you're saying it can change. Like how? Can you give me an example of what could change?
It's not going to change monogenic traits, dominant recessive. It's not going to change those. Whatever is expressed, you can select, but genetics are genetics. But when we're talking about polygenic traits, multi-gene traits, we're talking about form and function traits, that can certainly change. So let's say if I get birds from Frank, and they're beautiful, and they have everything they need, but I start hatching birds off them, and their conformation changes a bit, or their station changes a bit, which could certainly happen, or the size of the bird, or the weight of the bird. Those are traits that I have to look at the offspring that are produced, and from there I have to decide, because I'm going to get variation at that point. Whenever you're dealing with variation, you're dealing with polygenic traits and vice versa. So that tells you right there that they can be improved over time. So I need to start looking for the birds that have the traits I'm looking for, or the closest to what I'm looking for, and I have to select those, and then over time, they'll change.
Let me ask you this then. If you get a bird from Frank, do not expect that when you take it to your farm and breed it, that you're going to get identical to what he has on his farm. Because once it's here and in our environment and after they've come to our farm, things could change.
I would expect them to change.
Yeah. It's not like it's going to be boom and it's going to happen.
Right.
The way the bird's made up, just say I've got Kenny's birds. The way Kenny's got his birds bred, the way he selected them, the way it's done, I'm going to get the majority of those birds still. But there's going to be a small percentage of them over time start to change. Each time you breed them, there's going to be more and more of them that may pop up and change. Now, are they a true family? Now, if they got a lot of diversity in them, you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff happen, aren't you, Kenny?
Yeah.
In that scenario.
If you order, let's say, a gray family and they're throwing reds, those genes are in there. If you wanted a white-legged family and they're throwing green-legged or yellow-legged, those genes are in there. If you wanted a peak comb and they're throwing straight comb, those genes are in there. So that's different. But when we're talking about form and function traits, disease resistance, those are the kind of things associated with polygenic inheritance, quantitative inheritance. Those are the things that are going to change. I would actually expect them to change and just know that I'm going to have to make a strain out of them. Unless I live right next door to the guy or down the street, I'm going to expect them to change.
And a lot of that is on the knowledge of the breeder they're going to as well, and his selection or her selection.
And you won't know that, Frank. A lot of times you have no idea the way they select them.
No, you won't.
No.
You won't. Just that change alone, the difference in the breeders, the knowledge in the breeders, the way they select, that's enough right there to change them a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Frank, because you actually mill your own feed. You put your own feed together. It's not necessarily store-bought. Buena Vista is saying just by the change of the feed, especially coming from Frank, and then if they come here and we're just using store-bought feed, that can change the birds.
Yeah, it can. I've had other people take birds from my place and they'd be like, man, they're having a rough time. Their plumage looks bad after they've had them for a couple of years. And they will. Nutrition is the fuel that puts the traits the bird's holding to their full potential. The better you feed, the more they're going to show their true potential. Without good feed, it makes selection very hard.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. A lot of people think that the feed is going to change the genes. It's not going to change the genes.
No.
But like Frank said, it shows its true potential, which makes you able to select better. If you have the genes there, but you're taking care of them improperly, you're not feeding them properly, they're always sickly, the genes might be there, but they're going to look like crap. What do you have to select from? You can only select from the phenotype. So if they're showing their true potential, then it's going to give you a better indication what the genes are, and you're going to select better. Having the proper nutrition is important. It really is. I wouldn't neglect nutrition at all.
You take a bird that have a tremendous amount of resistance to their environment, or the diseases that's on your yard, a closed yard. You take that bird and you give him an inadequate diet and you're feeding him just enough for him to live off of, he's not going to be very resistant. He's not going to be able to use that full potential of that resistance on those diseases. So yeah, even though if that rooster had a proper diet and was healthy and could resist the way he was bred for, he wouldn't have a problem. But inadequate feed wouldn't allow him to do that. He would never reach that potential of being that resistant to diseases on your yard.
And health is an issue too, because the diseases that bird may be resistant to in one yard may not be in another yard.
Right.
So Frank might bring birds to my yard, even though I live in California. There may be things in my yard that his birds have never been exposed to, and I get them all of a sudden I got sick birds. So I've got to deal with that. And that can change the way genes are expressed as well, because the bird isn't at its full potential, because it's not doing well. That's going to change the way we select as well. We've done one show on epigenetics inside the website, and I want to do it again. I want to do it even bigger and more entailed, because it's an awesome topic. It really is. It has a lot to do with how you breed, how you select, and how you create a family. And we break it down into 3 categories. We call it the 3-legged stool. So if you can imagine a stool with 3 legs, and each leg has its own environmental factor or function. So one leg would be environment and management, which kind of goes to what a lot of people think when they think of epigenetics, but it's not complete. Then you got nutrition and health. That would be the second leg. And then the third leg would be genetic inheritance and the traits that you select. Those all come into play. But the actual function of epigenetics It's basically your geographic location, which has an influence on gene expression. So what you have is you have DNA methylation, which works like a switch. It turns on and off genes depending on their environment. And then you have histone modifications, which works like a knob. So it can change the intensity of that particular trait. And we see this a lot when it comes to polygenic traits. So when we're talking about switches and knobs, those are the kind of things that are going to make a big difference when we get the birds and we're looking at the traits, the phenotype of the bird. We've got to be able to decipher what those traits are. If the trait is different than what we expected or how we're going to select, we got to determine, is it like a switch?
You want me to pull up the banner that you have on epigenetics?
Oh, okay. Let me show this first, then, if we're going to do that. So this is the three-legged stool. Like I said, you have the environment and you have management. Then you have health and nutrition as the second leg. And then you have the genetic inheritance and the traits that they select. I do want to change that. And mitochondrial DNA does play a role in that, too. I don't want to get into that because that's a whole nother topic. I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. But like I said, you do have the DNA methylation, which works like switches. You have the histone modifications that work like knobs. And what we have to determine when we're looking at the phenotype of the bird, whether we're dealing with switches or knobs, because it's going to change the way we select. If we're looking at switches, we're either culling the trait or we're selecting for it. If we're looking at knobs, which is the histone modifications, then we know that we're dealing with the highest intensity. So we're looking at the birds that showing the most potential, have the highest intensity for that particular trait. We select for that, we improve it over time. So the switches, which is the DNA methylation, is something that we deal with right away, where the knobs is something we change over time. This chart here basically just shows you how important the environment is. It's a bigger factor than you'd ever know. You got Mendelian trait, genetics, which is the dominant recessive, codominant, the extension to Mendelian, which is Thomas Hunt Morgan, sex-linked traits, quantitative traits, polygenic traits. This just shows how much of a factor the environment can actually be. So what I would say, because a lot of people want to just say, oh, the epigenetics is just something on the side. It's not that big a deal. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, because you take that three-legged stool, and if one of those legs are shorter than the other, that bird's never going to reach his true potential. No way. If one of them's off, he's never going to be what he was intended to be.
Yeah.
It's just that easy.
If that leg is broken, shorter than the other one, missing, that bird is just not going to be what you, by looking at the phenotype and looking at the offspring that they're producing, you're going to have to determine whether that's a trait or a family that you can improve on, or one you're going to have to scrap and start over with something else. I can't wait to really get into that topic. That's actually a really good topic.
We just skimmed it. We didn't really even go into it deep. Just basically what we're doing here with the intent of doing it better later on.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
So let's get into the topic. Today, I was thinking about doing a Q&A, but I want to take a step further. The last 6 weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions. Whenever something trending on the internet, I've got members and followers always asking me questions. So I'll add it to this list, and I thought, okay, we'll address it then, because I don't do a lot of answering questions on Facebook or YouTube. I do most of my teaching on the website, but I did think this would be a good way to address some of them. This is one that I was supposed to address last time we did a show for the Q&A. Totally forgotten. I feel really bad. But this guy on YouTube, he goes by Explorer. And Frank, did you look at the outline? Did you see this question? He goes, why do you guys keep hitting on acils? When American Games are not a pure breed, it's a combination of many strains. The way you talk about A sills, it seems like all problems come from this bird. And that's not what we're saying at all, Frank.
First of all, I want to say this. What people call pure azels are not pure azels.
No.
Very few of them out there. What they're looking at is what they just basically said the American Games are. They're looking at a bird that, has azel bred into it, but also has the American game with it too. If you've seen a pure azel and you love gamefowl, you would run for your life to get away from it. If you've actually seen a purebred true azel, they're not what you expect. And they're sure not what people showing to be pure azels. They're not even close to it.
Nancy, the A-cell bird is an awesome bird.
It's a very beefy, don't mess with me bird. But they're very good in the hand. They love their handlers. So you
Gentle.
got that going for you. Very gentle.
Yeah, very gentle, disease resistant, the ones that I've come across. And a lot of people breed them thinking they're going to get that resistance from their birds. They breed them basically trying to get traits from the azel.
They're not going to get that from one infusion, one cross. It's one of those things that have to be developed over time. But we have no problem with the A-cell breed. I admire the breed. I like the breed. I don't raise them. But what we're talking about is people using A-cells to improve the American games.
Yeah.
And I'll agree with him. The American game fowl, if you look at social media, is hurting. It's struggling because the breeders themselves aren't breeders and they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what makes up the breed and the traits they should be selecting for and how to breed them properly or create a family. I hear all the time, it just cringes. I have a pure family. I just add blood to them every 5 or 6 years to refresh them. No, you changed them. You changed them completely.
Yeah. The thing of it is, too, is you can't breed an A-cell into your American games and think that you can breed it out.
That's right.
It's there for good. If you're going to tackle an A-cell family, I don't know what you guys think, but in my mind's eyes, you got to be somebody who has a lot of experience with breeding chickens because those A-cells, they're babies. And you go out in the morning and they look great and they're all getting along and stuff. You go out there an hour later and half of them are dead because they decided to start fighting at a week old. They take a lot of work, but they are really a great bird.
I would say that about any breed. If you're going to do well with them, you really got to specialize in that particular breed and understand what makes up the breed, understand what to select, what to cull. That's something that's not happening. Everybody says, oh, I look at American games, I just see a game bird. So I'm just adding new blood into them all the time, thinking I'm improving them. You're not improving anything. What improvement you get, we say this all the time, I feel like a broken record, is hybrid vigor, which is very temporary.
Yeah. And the thing about hybrid vigor, and Kenny can tell you the same thing, is they think it's the bloodlines that they're putting together that's creating these birds. It's not the bloodline. It's the actual hybrid vigor itself. You take any two non-related birds and put them together and breed them to get hybrids. Usually 9 times out of 10, you're going to get some nice birds out of that. You're going to get some really nice birds out of that, usually. But it's a wave. There's no consistency with it. And every time they add blood, they're just making that gene pool so weakened that every time you breed, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Whenever this topic comes up, we can't help but talk about meiosis. It was a light bulb moment for me when I realized that, and I believed everything everybody else believed, that
I did too.
I could improve them by adding new blood. That if they were starting to have problems, I could just add new blood and they're fixed. I've heard it so many times, oh, they start getting smaller. I just cross them and I get the size back. You didn't really get it back. It's a delusion. It's just hybrid vigor. See, understand hybrid vigor is not inheritable. It's temporary. It's not passed to the next generation. So any improvements from the cross aren't real like you think they are. Yeah, they're real in that bird, but that bird's a product. It's not going to be able to reproduce itself. Can you use a hybrid bird or a cross bird as seed fowl? Yeah, but understand that like we use beginning in the Founders Program as a cleanup process. That's exactly what it's made for, because a lot of times you're dealing with cross birds. You're dealing with birds that are not related when you're starting. Your Adam and Eve are rarely related, and they're crosses all by themselves, so you're dealing with a lot of genetic diversity. But that cleanup process helps you get to the point where you can start building the foundation. Without that cleanup process, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. This is a good example of meiosis. I always want to sum this up really quick because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But basically, you have a chromosome from the father, a chromosome from the mother. You could break down meiosis in different phases, but I don't want to get into that. But they do get to a point where they actually wrap around each other. And when they separate, they leave parts of each other on each other. So this is where you get the variation. So when you're dealing with birds with a lot of genetic diversity, they're from products of crosses, that's where you get the unpredictability. When you look at the offspring, they're all different. The more inbred they are, the more pure they are, the less you're going to see during crossover. So when they cross over, a lot of the genes are going to still be there because they're sharing the same genes. And as long as those genes aren't detrimental or deleterious, then it doesn't matter. I want to get them as homozygous as I can. The more homozygous they are, the more uniform, consistent they're going to be, the better they're going to be. So I don't want a lot of genetic diversity. I want to get rid of the genetic diversity, get them as homozygous as I can, as long as I'm not dealing with the deleterious genes. And if you see any birds expressing those deleterious genes, just cull them and then move forward with the ones that don't, and eventually you're going to be good. But what happens too is when they go through crossover, how they line up on the chromosomes matters whether they're going to be expressed or not, or whether they're passed along. Now, when you're dealing with cross birds or hybrid birds, a lot of those genes aren't going to be linked. But when you start seeing that genes or traits are passed and they're expressed every time, then we know they're linked. And the more pure they are, the more linked they're going to be and the more uniform you're going to get. And that may be, Frank, another one we need to do too, because that really wakes people up when they talk about infusion, crossing, or outcrossing. They think there's a benefit to it. If they really understood how meiosis works and understand the effects of meiosis, they wouldn't cross another bird ever.
Thing about it is, a hybrid bird has its place. It has its juice, and it's done. That's it. But here's the thing. A lot of people, they see it by bloodlines or how much infusion of each blood, a quarter, three-quarter, half and half. I look at it as the bird. I don't look at the name, nothing else. I look at what that bird has to offer. I don't care if it's a 3-way cross, 4-way cross, 5-way cross, 10-way cross. I don't care. I look what the bird himself has to offer. And if he's a really nice bird and he has all the inner qualities that I want in that bird, I wouldn't have a problem at all using him for a seed bird and making a true pure family from that bird. A lot of people sees that, oh, he's crossed 4 or 5 ways. You can't breed those. But they're looking at the names and the percentages of blood that they hold. A true breeder doesn't look at that. They look at that individual bird, what he holds and what he can add to that family. And that's the only thing they should be looking at is what the birds have to offer.
You're talking about percentages, okay?
Yes.
Genetics don't work that way in the first place.
No.
That's one thing. So we're not picking on ACILs. We have no problem with ACILs. As far as a breed, I think ACILs are awesome. It's the way people are using them to improve or think they are improving their American games. That's what I have a problem with.
My birds have Oriental blood in them, especially when they're young. You can see the Oriental in them.
And that's the problem, is that once you put it in, that influence stays
there
for a long time. You know?
Yes.
It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It's funny. Back when I was doing some articles, in fact, I have a compilation of articles that I did for the Breeders Academy, but I also have some that may at some point end up in a book. So I started with the A's because I was going to do an article on every breed alphabetically. And so the A seals were the first article that I did, and I researched them extensively and to find out where their origin was. Where did they start? And before I started the article, I wasn't too excited. I was like, oh, God, these kind of are ugly birds. I don't know. But actually, with all the research that I did and their history, they are fascinating. And I fell in love with these birds. In fact, if I had the time and if I had the space, I would maybe get myself a family of them. They're that neat.
Look what they made the commercial industry.
Yeah.
The Cornish, all of those. Without those birds, we wouldn't have the birds that we have today.
Very important.
Yeah. Orientals do play a big role in what we have today. The next one is, and this is interesting because they ask, are recessive genes always bad? They always put a negative connotation on recessiveness.
Recessive can be good and bad.
Yeah. But I will say this, that defects and deleterious genes are usually recessive.
That's why they're bad.
I know that, but like Frank said, not all recessives are bad. It depends on what you're looking for. Again, we're looking at the phenotype. So one of the things we do when we look at the phenotype, we're looking at the traits that they're expressing, and we're saying, okay, what traits are dominant? Which traits are recessive? Which traits do we want to keep? Which traits do we want to preserve? Which traits do we want to cull? We're assessing what we want out of them, and we're going to make our selection accordingly. If we're looking at a straight comb red with green legs, that's as recessive you can get. The nice thing about that is if you breed and you create a family from that, you're not going to have a lot of surprises when it comes to recessives showing up. So when you're dealing with dominant genes, the problem is you don't know if they're homozygous or heterozygous. So you don't know if they're pure or not. So you're going to have to test them to find out. And if they're pure, you want to do everything you can to keep them pure. A lot of people have a problem with that. And if they're not, you're going to have to breed them in a way to where those recessives stay hidden. But no, recessives, there's some good recessives and there are bad recessives. And it's usually the defects in the deleterious genes that you have to watch.
Well, let me
out for.
ask you this, guys. What are some bad recessive traits that you've run into in your experience of breeding?
Toe.
Defects in general, but some recessives are associated with health, disease sometimes too.
Yeah, that's true.
But I
Could it
heard
be Merrick's?
Well, as far as you go on that, some birds would be more prone to it through their DNA
susceptibility.
than others, but not actually like a recessive.
some diseases, if they're susceptible, once they get it, they're done. Some diseases are hard to build a resistance to, but there's a lot of diseases that as long as you're selecting the healthy ones and you're staying away from the sick ones, over time, they're going to get better. They're going to get to a point where you don't have sick birds. I haven't seen a sick bird out there forever. If I see a sick bird, I don't waste time with it. I get rid of it as fast as I can.
But what I see with that, Kenny, they'll breed for resistance for so long, 3, 4, 5 years, and they get to where they got a grip on it. And then they get this outstanding bird that they just love, and it's a sickly bird, and they have to medicate it. And then they turn around and they put it right back into that family again. So they go back to it again. All they've worked for, they've just added back to it. That's the worst thing anybody can do is select a certain way just to turn around 4 or 5 years and add it right back into your family again. It happens so many times.
The problem with medications and a lot of times vaccinations, they just hide the disease. They're not really getting rid of it. So just because they're not symptomatic doesn't mean they're not still carrying the disease. No, I would cull the sick birds, breed to the healthy ones. And
On
over
my
time, you're gonna be
farm, if they are sick and they want to die, I will help them.
good. Yeah, Tony used to say that to me all the time.
Yeah.
If it's sick, Kenny, let it die. Please let it die.
I will actually give them a hand with that. If they want to die, I will help them.
Let me ask you this. What about sunken face or sunken eyes? Is that a recessive gene?
That could be just a simple defect, or it could be from poor health. It could be a number of things that would cause a sunken eye. Either way, I'd cull it.
That's a multitasker, that one.
Could that be a recessive gene
could
as
be.
well?
It could be, yeah. If it's a defect,
Okay.
it's recessive.
All right,
yeah.
and then what about lethal genes? Could those be recessive?
Sure. They can even be dominant too. Some lethals. But usually if they're dominant, they're easy to get rid of.
That's something I never want to see.
No. And
I've
that's,
had it one time in my younger life, and I never want to see it again.
and that's the risk that you take whenever you're outcrossing. So many people are afraid of inbreeding because they're afraid of getting the COI too high. I don't have a problem with the COI being too high if there's no deleterious genes or defects that I'm going to have to deal with. Dogs, they can test for those things. And from what I'm hearing, they're pretty accurate. Okay. So if you're testing the mother and the father and they're showing that they're clear, chances are you're going to be okay. Chickens, we test breed them. And you make a choice. They're producing those deleterious genes, and you either cull the birds that are expressing it or you cull the parents too. You have to make that decision. And the biggest thing is not to breed two animals, two birds that are sharing the same deleterious gene, because then you're going to produce it. This thing about the recessives being bad, I've had that question quite a bit lately, and I heard someone saying, watch out for the heterozygous recessives. And he talks like he really understands genetics and he's trying to pass himself off as an authority, but just the fact that he said that shows me he doesn't know what he's talking about. That kind of stuff puts me on edge because I don't think too much about it at first, but when my members or followers start asking me about it, they're making an impact, and it's not a good one. They're influencing people. Thank God the people that ask me, that doesn't sound right. What do you think, Kenny? And then I tell them.
That's the reason I tell everybody, learn from one person at a time. And when you're done with that person, then go learn from somebody else. But don't try to learn from multiple people at the same time. The only thing it does is just confuses you.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You got to stick with one person and trust in that person. And then when you think you've outgrown that person, then you can go on to another person. But one person at a time. I see so many people today on the internet, social media groups, and they're just learning from 50, 60 different people.
Frank, I hear what you're saying, but my only problem with that is you got to find the right person because
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find somebody that you think is knowledgeable and learn from them. But this thing going to everybody without even knowing that person or knowing that person's credentials is a dangerous road to go down. It really is. I look at it this way. I'm thankful for the people in my life that told me wrong. Now, at the time I wasn't, but I am now, because I think it made me a better breeder to go down those roads, to see that part of the breeding aspect. And today, a lot of people don't have the immune system to be able to handle the environment in the way birds are supposed to be bred, the true way. They start it and they say, daggone it, this is hard. I like just making crosses, and they back out of it fast. Like I say, they've just got a weak immune system to it, and that's fine. Same way in dog breeders, whatever you're breeding. Some people just don't want to go in depth. They just want to skirt it and not really do it the way it's supposed to be done.
The only problem with the experimentation is 99% of the time, you don't get what you think you're going to get.
No.
Because you didn't understand the genetics in the first place, and they're working against each other. So you put two birds together, and you either think you're going to get one trait or the other, or you think you're getting a blending. What happened, Nancy?
That didn't work out real well.
I'll tell you what you just did. I don't remember what I said, but if it was a good thing for shorts, I can't use that now. I really appreciate that.
I thought we was having an eclipse there for a minute.
I was looking away. I saw a flash in the corner of my eye. I go, what the hell was that? I thought I was having a stroke or something.
Okay, y'all laughing yet? Okay, there's your joke.
Yeah.
of the day. No, our screen right here looks plain. We usually have something on the bottom or something, and I was just trying to spruce it up a little bit.
Spice it up a little bit, right, Nancy?
How about that?
No. There you go. You found it. Continue. If you can remember what you were talking about.
I have no idea what I was talking about. We were all over the place. So I'm just seeing where there's certain people acting like authorities. And do I really want to get into that?
No, you don't.
No,
Let's
I don't.
talk about homogosity.
Well,
Is it a
before we
bad
get
thing?
into that, Kenny, give them a definition of that before we go into it. Because I know
Exactly.
we've got some new viewers here, and they may not know what it is. So the ones that do, just bear with us and let Kenny do that so everybody on the same page.
It's simple. Homozygosity is basically, if you're looking at a bird and he has a particular trait, he's either dominant or recessive. And if he's dominant, he's either homozygous or heterozygous. Okay. And if he's recessive, he is homozygous. So we want to match up that bird with other birds carrying the same trait with the same factor. And if we can get birds that are carrying the same trait and they're pure for that trait, then we have a family that's homozygous for that trait. The more homozygosity I can get, the better off I'm going to be. Now, a lot of people are scared to death of that word because they think it just means that the more homozygous they are, the more homozygosity that they see or the birds have, the more chances of disease or defects showing up. If the defects are there, yeah. But if they're not, which you should have been, this is all on selecting the right seed fowl in the first place, even with dogs. It's about selecting the right dogs in the first place. So if you're selecting the right animals to start your Adam and Eve, and hopefully those genes aren't there, then you're not going to have any problem. Chickens, we can test breed them. We can cull out the ones that are expressing it, and little by little we can get there. Or you decide that you would get new seed fowl. But I don't care about how high the COI is. The higher, the better for me. It doesn't matter. As long as the genes aren't deleterious or hidden defects, there's no problem. If I got high COI with homozygosity, I've got a family that's very uniform, very consistent. The offspring are predictable. I know what I'm going to get, and they're repeatable. I know that I'm going to get those offspring every time. Why wouldn't you not want that? Okay, so everybody freaks out when they think the family's getting a little too close. So they bring in outside blood and just completely ruin everything they did. They're starting over. The birds are not what they were. You're not going to breed it out of the family. Meiosis shows you that. So that's the problem I have, is that everybody thinks the outcrossing is the fix-all. It's where they're getting those deleterious genes. That's where they're getting the defects. When you're outcrossing, most of the time, you don't know what's in those animals. You don't know what's in those birds. And you could be introducing anything.
That's the reason they're so terrified about the inbreeding, though, Kenny. They're not inbreeding birds worth inbreeding. Just any birds without proper conformation, without being cleaned up. They just put them together, especially them not being cleaned up. Could you imagine the stuff that they're seeing? And they see this and it scares the heck out of them. And it would anybody. And I'll say this. A lot of people out there will say, oh gosh, inbreeding is dangerous. It destroys families. I'm going to tell you this. If you don't know what you're doing, it is very dangerous. If you don't have the knowledge to do it and do it right, It can be. But if you've got the knowledge to do it right and understand it, it's the greatest tool in any breeding program. Any.
Yeah. You can't just inbreed anything. That would be insane. That's why the Founders Program has that cleanup process, and inbreeding is part of that, so that you're developing the family, you're cleaning them up, you're getting them ready for the foundation. So I'm not going to say just take any brother and sister and breed them together. A friend of mine, Kirby Jackson, whenever I bring up inbreeding and I show all the benefits of inbreeding, he's always quick to tell me, and he's right. It really depends on the birds that you are inbreeding. It's absolutely right. So you don't want to inbreed just to inbreed, and you don't want to inbreed everything. You want to inbreed the right birds. You want to inbreed the right dogs. And I'll say this too, because it's not only what we call it or what we name it or how we describe it, but I also think it's what's getting them in trouble. It's with chickens, but I'm also seeing this with dogs. When they look at inbreeding, they think mother to son, father to daughter, brother to sister, that's inbreeding. And then uncle to niece and aunt to nephew and those kind of breedings are line breeding. If you look at any book, any of the Dead Man books, any of the present books on line breeding, none of them describe it the way these guys are describing it. The definition and the difference, the way they describe inbreeding and line breeding are so wrong. It's not even funny. It's why they are in trouble, I think. That's why they don't understand the process. When you're breeding what they call line breeding, when you're breeding uncle to niece and aunt to nephew and cousin to cousin and half brother to half sister, that's not inbreeding or line breeding. That's in an inbreeding, which if they understood that inbreeding is the closest form of breeding you can do. Done right, it's one of the best things you can do as far as the cleanup process and actually making strides in improving the family. As long as you're selecting right, you're picking the right animals, inbreeding is a great function. I don't like to call it a method. I like to call it a tool. Line breeding is basically cloning. So I'm picking a mother or father. I'm breeding it to their offspring generation after generation because I'm trying to clone that particular animal. I'm trying to clone that particular bird. People get in trouble with line breeding because they don't know when to stop and don't know what to do afterwards. But in an inbreeding, it's fine when you have an established family and they're homozygous in all their traits, and you're not going to get a lot of surprises. It's great. It's a fine method for maintaining a family, but it's not a great method for creating or improving a family. So they get all scared. They get them really inbred, or they think what's inbred. One inbreeding could scare the shit out of them to the point where they have to do the outcross. They think outcrossing fixes everything. They think it's the tool that fixes whatever problems there may be. All they did was just change the family completely.
And get some hybrid vigor.
Hybrid vigor, which is a false indication of what's really being produced.
Yeah, that's what makes it popular. But here's the thing. Then they breed those birds, the hybrid birds, and then they're like, oh, that's pretty good bird still yet. And then they breed them again. They're like, wait a minute, something's happening here. What's going on? And then they breed them again, and then it's, oh, crap. Then they add more to it, hybrid vigor again. So they have to make that family live off hybrid vigor when the only thing they're really doing is pushing the wanted traits away and inviting traits that we don't want in. So I guess you could say they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Members of the Breeders' Academy that are dog breeders have done coaching calls with me. I think they just did the coaching call just to tell me, they were so excited that the way we teach, like the Founders Program, because we use inbreeding and different methods, we actually use proper inbreeding. I'm not going to say where, but we use proper inbreeding. We use a proper line breeding. And they're so excited to tell me how much it worked and how much a better result they got and how these other people are just adding new blood all the time. They're always outcrossing this, outcrossing that. Look at the pedigree. They've got these, what they think is famous dogs within the pedigree, but they really use the word scatterbreeding to describe some of their breeding. I think they are scatterbreeding. I think they're mixing them up. I think they're crossing them. I think they got a mess. And then you look at the animals and they're all different.
Here's proof in the pudding. You could take a true family. I'm talking about from a good, reputable breeder and just say, I'm going to breed brother and sister and see what I get. You breed them. The majority of them is going to be real nice birds if they've been bred properly. Now, you take birds that's not been in a proper breeding program, they're not a true family, and they've not been cleaned up, and you breed those birds, you're going to get some of the nastiest looking stuff you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be terrible. But once that family's cleaned up, you may get an oddball here and there, a little surprise here and there out of the blue, but the majority of them, the biggest percentage of them is going to be really nice birds. That's like me this year. I don't think I raised maybe 40 stags, I haven't got a cull yet. And I've got maybe 3 or 4 more birds still free ranging. And I'm not really got a cull. Now, they've got to mature, but I'm talking about defects and oddities and stuff that I don't want in my family as far as that goes. Once you get those birds to a true inbred family, you get them that way. Kenny said it a while ago. They're uniform, they're consistent, they're predictable, and they're repeatable. And that's what makes a family. That's the plus to a true family.
If you're using inbreeding in the beginning of your breeding program, like we do in the Founders Program, it's just part of the cleanup process. There's about 3 different stages we use for that cleanup process, but inbreeding is one of them. And variation, genetic diversity, issues. That's just showing you what's in the genome. That's what you want in the beginning. And people are like, that means I got to cull. And I know I hate culling too, but that's part of breeding. If you're not willing to cull, you're not a breeder.
That's true.
Okay. But if you compare the inbreeding you did in the beginning of the program versus at the end of the program or further into it, when the family is established and predictable and repeatable and you do the inbreeding, then it's a whole different story. You're not going to get that big variation. You've already weeded out those deleterious genes, so you're not going to see those being expressed in the offspring. It's amazing what you get when you do the inbreeding later down the road. It's an option that you have as a breeder to tighten them up just a little bit more. Like I said, I have no problem tightening up the bloodline if I'm not dealing with the deleterious genes. And there's ways to find out what's there. So chickens, we test breed. We cull the ones that are expressed, go on with the ones that are not. Eventually, over time, you'll see that trait less and less to the point you don't see it anymore. Dogs, if I was breeding dogs, I'd get that DNA test every time. Match up my female with my male. And if I'm not seeing any problems, I'd breed them. And chances are you're not going to see anything.
I wish we had that.
Yeah, I do too. You know what I mean?
I would love that.
So
Man, that'd be so nice.
Every time I hear people using the COR and the COI to determine their breeding program or determine the animals that they're using for that breeding program, I'm like, wow, you don't know what you're doing. But that's just not how it works. You're either not inbreeding or you're not inbreeding properly. I want them inbred. I want them homozygous. I want to see homozygosity. I want them as pure as they can be. I want them to share all the same traits.
Without that, just what you said, without that, you don't have a true family.
You don't have a family.
Can't have a family.
No.
And this is what gets me, though. And over the years, I've seen it many times. And it's not been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. It's been hundreds of people that I've heard it come from their mouth over the years. And they're saying there's people out there that says they've maintained families 30 and 40 years, and it can't be done. I've never been able to do it. And the thing about it is, knowing how to do it, it can be done. Not knowing how to do it, it's impossible. But it can be done. I've got breeding books that goes back that I can prove what we teach, okay? Plain and simple, as far as the Founders Program goes. But some people think it's impossible just because they don't know the process. But going back on that, you was talking about a while ago, we was talking about just taking birds that hadn't been cleaned up and breeding them. And people get scared to death. They see all that stuff that they think inbreeding causes. And we know that it's not inbreeding that causes it. Inbreeding didn't create it. It just exposed it. But that right there, they think when you inbreed, if every one of them isn't perfect, it didn't work. And it doesn't work that way in the beginning.
A lot of people want to blame inbreeding on the size and weight of the bird, changes in the bird, color of the bird, whatever. They want to blame all kinds of things. And size is one of them. Oh, the birds are getting smaller. I'm telling you, that wasn't inbreeding. That was your selection. Or they're getting bigger.
Smaller or bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that's a problem, but what I hear most of the time is, oh, my family's getting smaller. I'm losing them. It wasn't the inbreeding that did it, and chances are you weren't doing that much inbreeding in the first place. All the things that I think are a benefit, everybody tries to look at it as detrimental. You're fixing traits, fixation of traits. I want to fixate those traits. I want to repeat those traits. Okay, I'm locking in those genes. If they're the genes I want to lock them in. I want to do everything I can to preserve that gene. Yes, especially in the beginning of the program, that inbreeding is going to expose not only the good ones, but like Frank was saying earlier, it was going to expose the bad ones. I want that because that's going to help me clean them up. If those traits are expressed, then I know what birds to get rid of. And if the birds aren't expressing it, chances are they don't have it. And if I breed them properly down the road, whatever traits are there, I'm going to be able to hide them along the way because I'm not selecting towards them. If you look at the way the Punnett square is put together and the way it's broken down, you'll notice that 25% of the offspring that are produced when you're producing heterozygous mother and father, we're looking at some homozygous traits there that we could select from and actually improve. And a little by little, what we feel is a detriment, we can actually turn it into a positive benefit. Don't be afraid of inbreeding. If you're afraid of it, it's just because you're listening to too many people or you don't know how to use it properly. That's the way I look at it.
Usually it's both. But what I see a lot of times, and I was talking to a good friend about this, and he brought it up when we was talking, and a light bulb went over my head. And he said, a lot of times I think the only reason people inbred anymore in the gamefowl community is because of have-to circumstances. They get down to the last 2 birds. That's all they got, and their brother and sister, and they think they have to do it then in order to keep the line. But as soon as they make that inbreeding, was the birds, there's only 2 they had, and 90% of the time, they shouldn't even been cloned. They should have been culled, the birds, as far as the way they look and the defects and stuff they've got on. They do that and hope to keep them, but really they're doing them an injustice because they're doing birds that shouldn't have been inbred to start with. So they do it just to keep the birds going. And then even after they get offspring to that, they'll breed them back to a bird that's non-related. So they really didn't even save the family. But I think a lot of time that's the only way it's done is out of desperation, what I'm trying to get at.
Well, inbreeding is a great tool to not only create the family, but preserve it and save it. You just got to know what to do after that.
Yeah. You can't create a family without inbreeding. It's just not,
Oh,
it's
no.
not possible. You can't promote traits in birds that you want without doing inbreeding and locking traits. It would be a long road to go just adding blood and expecting certain traits out of that bird because they're going to be different every time you outcross.
Just study Robert Bakewell. We call him the father of selective breeding. But he learned something most people were ignoring or didn't understand or were afraid of, and that was inbreeding. That without inbreeding, you can't create a strain. Every chicken we have out there, every dog breed we have out there, they exist because of inbreeding. Without inbreeding, you'd have so much genetic diversity. You'd have so much variation. There's no way you could call them a breed. They wouldn't be able to repeat themselves. That's only through inbreeding that's able to happen. So if that's how a breed is created, that's how a strain is created too. The same things that we would do to create a breed, we need to do that when we're creating a strain. So inbreeding is real important. The next one I get is because we talk so much about inbreeding and creating a strain and we want purity of blood. Someone was asking me, so when is a good time to outcross? What do you think, Frank?
What's the point of inbreeding if you're going to outcross? That's my question.
There are times when you are going to outcross. If I'm going to create a strain, chances are the mother and father aren't related. That's basically either a cross, infusion, or an outcross. You're starting with birds that are unrelated, and a lot of times we're talking about birds that are heterozygous for the traits that they're expressing. So a lot of times when you're creating a strain, you can't help but start with birds that were outcrossed or to do an outcross in the beginning. The only other time I would do it is say if I've had these birds for years and I've been working on them and they're just not expressing the trait that I need. But what I tell people is the last thing you want to do is do any kind of experimentation with your foundation line. Because you never know what you're bringing in. Whenever you're doing an outcross, there's always so many unknown factors. You just don't know what's hiding within the genome. You got your phenotype and you got your genotype. The phenotype is expressing everything we want to see. The genotype, there's a lot of unknowns. And so when we breed in new animals or new birds into our flock or our strain, we have no idea what they're bringing with them. They might have some of the traits we like, but the only way to get those traits into our family is to breed that particular bird over time. You're never going to improve anything in one infusion, one cross, or one outcross. It just doesn't happen. You got to breed it within a number of generations to get that trait to the point where it's repeatable. So if I have a foundation, I don't want to mess it up, and I see a bird that has the traits I'm looking for because I'm just not expressing them, then I need to do a subline. It's important that I do a subline away from my foundation. That's where I do all my experimentation. If it works out, then maybe that will become a new line. Maybe, I usually don't favor this, but maybe it can be infused into the old line. But I wouldn't do that right away. I would do that way down the road.
A lot of people has contacted me over the years to get one of your birds to put with mine to put them back up. Before I would do that, I would just buy the bird that you're buying and just breed them. That's the way I would do it.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot less time consuming and the bird's already made right there for you. A lot of people takes a chance, and that's okay if you want to do that. But a lot of times what I've been familiar with, they don't work out usually the way that you think they will. And if they do, it's way down the road. Kenny said it's way down the road with a lot of work involved in it.
Okay, here's a good one, Frank. How can I balance genetic purity with overall health and vigor in my pure strain? The biggest thing is selection.
That's number one, always.
It's simpler than you think. And I get this all the time. They want that purity of blood, but they're afraid that the more pure they are, the more sickly or more problems they're going to have. So they want to maintain health and vigor. And you need that to keep the family going. So first one would be select for good health. Select for good health and select for vigor. I know that sounds simplistic, but it's amazing how many people don't think like that. They're selecting for other things. Okay, they take health and vigor as a secondary thing. They don't give it much thought. So if you look at the offspring, you want to select the healthiest birds. You want to select the most vigorous when you're putting together your brood pens.
Yeah. And if they've got defects, you want to stay far away from those. Now, some defects you can work with, some of them you can't. Some of them you're just going to waste your time with. So knowing those defects, and what were they in Academy, Kenny, like 89?
I think
Close
it's
to 90
88
defects?
or, close to 90.
Yeah, and a lot of those you can work past. And over time, you can, like we said, clean up the genome. You can bypass it, get rid of it. Some of them is not that easy. It can take years on top of years to get by. We always say it. If you're going to start your own strain, make your own strain, start out with the best you can. That will put you where you need to go a lot faster. You can start out with lower grade fowl, but why would you when you start with better fowl and end up to your goal a lot faster?
Okay, so you select for good health, good vigor. You're selecting to improve disease resistance. You're culling all the sick birds, anything showing a weakness, and you're not relying on the medications. So what this does is it helps you select the healthiest hens, which is actually improving your mitochondrial DNA within the family. If you're selecting hens, and this is where you get it, and you're selecting the hens that are the healthiest, okay, the most vigorous, they have the best disease resistance, they're the most active, the strongest, and they're producing offspring that are the same. They're very active and strong, and they're growing and developing like they should, and you're not getting any sick ones. That's a hen with good mitochondrial DNA. That goes a long way of not only creating and improving a family and making them pure, but having a family that's healthy and vigorous along the way too. So you want to select for those things, and you want to cull as hard as you can. But when you can get those hens that are really special like that, and you can select for or actually breed towards good mitochondrial DNA, you're going to have a family, Frank, it's like they're bulletproof. Nothing gets them sick when you get them like that.
And we always talk how important the hen is in a family, like you just did. And a lot of times I can have my stags running out, and I'll have 2 or 3 strains out there running out. Same strain, but all different hens. And I can look at those birds without looking at their markings and just observe them. And I can see the attributes of the hen in those young stags. I can see her conformation. I can see her temperament. Just so many things that, just like looking at a kid and his mother or her daughter, you can see the resemblance in the children the same way. If you look at the stags, you can see the mother's attributes that she put in those stags.
Yeah. See, mitochondrial DNA is the powerhouse of the cell. It has a lot to do with energy. So it has a lot to do with the growth and development of the offspring. And if you can get females that produce really good offsprings that grow and develop properly and they're not sick, what's neat about that is not only are you creating a really good family, but that mitochondrial DNA is passed to her daughters. So it's continued on. When you breed to a sick bird or a bird that has some weaknesses or has some issues, we're talking about a hen, and she's producing more like her, can you imagine what that family, the direction that family is going over time?
Going down fast.
Yeah. So that's the neat thing about mitochondrial DNA. It's passed through her daughters generation after generation. It's preserved. You can count on it. The only thing that changes mitochondrial DNA is spontaneous mutations. And most of the time, those don't take effect. You can select those out. And it doesn't affect all of them. It usually affects one bird and not others. And it's rare. Okay? Yeah. So mitochondrial DNA is very reliable and predictable and repeatable. That's why we say the hen is the most important equation in the family, in the breeding. Yes, you want a good rooster, but you have to have a good hen. And we say it all the time that you could breed a good hen to a crappy rooster and still get by. You could breed a hen to a mediocre rooster and actually still do pretty good. You breed a good rooster to a crappy hen, it never goes well. You know what I mean? You don't get what you think you're going to get. It goes in a really bad direction. What's that?
No makeup whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's a definite fail right there.
I've never seen a rooster make up for a bad hen, but I've seen many hens make up for a bad rooster.
Yeah. And the thing about it is you take a hen, she's thrifty, she's confident, she's not constantly just beating on everybody. She walks through a crowd of hens, they separate, they go their own way. She's confident of herself. She's never been sick a day in her life. That's representing her stags right there, her offspring. That's what her offspring's going to be. That's going to be her worth. Now, you take a hen that's totally the opposite of what I've just explained. She's sickly. She's not vigorous. Totally the opposite. That's what your stags is going to be. So Kenny's so right. The hen makes such a big difference in the offspring than the rooster can.
Can I say something?
Sure.
All
I was
right,
going to
so
ask you if you had
JS
anything to say.
Yeah, I've got a couple things to say, actually, a couple questions. JS is saying that he has a ton of defects in his offsprings, but he does have a couple of good ones. And I'm saying that's all it takes is one good hen and one good cock. And there you go. You can keep going with your family.
I want to encourage them to keep moving forward. That's exactly what you want to see. So the ones that aren't showing the defects and are in good shape, those are the ones you want to move forward with. If you just have one, that's all you need to move forward, great. Get rid of the rest. Don't take your chances. Don't breed them. As long as you get one, you can move forward. So I would encourage them to do that.
I agree. If you hatch off 100 stags, say for instance, you let them mature and you get that one cock that you want, it's all worth it. If you get the one that you want, it's well worth it. That's the goal.
Now, over time, it'll get better as long as you're selecting properly and you're picking the right birds. The numbers will get better as you go. But when you're beginning and you may only get one or two, it's enough to move forward with, okay? It's when you keep producing offspring and they're all expressing the same defect or the same deleterious gene or the same sickness or whatever. They're just not advancing. And we're talking about all of them, then you got a problem.
And that's the best thing about the Founders Program. It gives you rules to, if you run into this situation, it always gives you a back door to get out of it. So you couldn't have added it up any better. Anywhere in the program, if you have a problem, there's always another exit that you can go through to get away from what you're experiencing.
We have 3 main breeding programs on the website. And one of them I took off and I'm improving. I'm going to put back on. The other one, it's in video form, but we're going to work out the program side of it here pretty soon. But you have the Founders Program for creating a strain. You have the gene shopping for creating the seed fowl. And you have the Improvement Through Reduction Program, which is basically a preservation program for when you run into a problem. And those are really good programs. And we'll be covering those in masterclass videos here pretty soon. We did the gene shopping recently. I'm going to work out the program, get it on the website. We're probably going to cover it one more time. The members really love that one. It's not what you think. Don't just think you go and shop for genes. There's a certain process that you have to do. And I can't wait to see how the members work it out and see the results in the future. The Improvement Through Reduction, I've saved so many families with that program. So that'll be back on the website here pretty soon.
That's the great thing about it, too. You take people that's had these families and they've got just terrific families of fowl. And they've had them for a while. And now they're starting to go downhill. And they don't want to change them. They want to keep them to where they're at. And that gives you an opportunity to keep the birds you want. And as long as you're willing to put the work in, you can keep them for a century if you can live that long.
Yeah.
But as long as you put the work in, you can keep them where you want them as you go. And there's not another breeding program out there that allows you to do that. None whatsoever that I know of.
No, me either. Nancy, is there any questions? We can start on questions and then wrap it up.
That's where I'm going.
Okay, good.
You read her mind, Kenny.
So
42 years of marriage, I guess I better be able to do something, right?
That's true. That's true.
all right, then shut up. So
I guess I deserve that one too, right?
This is for both of you guys. Inside the Breeders Academy, how can he maximize a trio? And that's all he has is a trio, but he wants to know how to maximize that trio.
The Founders Program, and he's got some, I'll just say it this way, he's got some selection to do there.
And there's a lot of masterclass videos going to help you with that. It might surprise you.
Yeah.
You might be surprised with what we say
I believe
about
it will.
the trio. Yeah, the Founders Program.
Okay, this might be the same answer. Carlos is asking, from a pair, can I get a line and 2 sublines?
You got to understand what a subline is. Now, from a pair, that would be your Adam and Eve. That's what starts the Founders Program. So yeah, that's what you need to get started. As far as a subline, that's a whole different thing. You wouldn't use a subline in the beginning of the program. You'd use it in a program that's more established. Let's say you want to do any kind of experimentation. You have some ideas of maybe adding outside blood, doing an outcross, whatever. You think that whatever bird you have might improve yours. You would do a subline that'd be separate. Again, you'd run the Founders Program with that line too. And then over time, you decide from there whether that subline becomes the new line or whether it's something you can fuse into the old line. But you wouldn't do that right away. So you wouldn't run a subline in the beginning. You have no direction. You'd just be creating another line. It'd be just a separate line. I would just guard against creating too many lines too soon.
What's
Focus
too
away.
soon?
It's best to start one line at a time, but I wouldn't do more than 3. You got to have enough pens and you got to do it a certain way. You got to
I
do it
do
right.
one at a time. That's all I do. Because I want to stay focused on that particular strain and do it the best I can.
Figure out which ones are better and go on with those.
Yeah, I agree.
And the Breeders' Academy shows you exactly how to
It's
do
the
that.
Founders Program.
That's what it's made up for, actually.
So Manuel is asking how he can get a hold of your first book.
On the website. If you become an annual member, you can get it as an ebook, PDF.
Yeah. So that's not online now anymore,
No.
Kenny?
You might find it on eBay once in a while, but you're going to pay a lot for it. If you join the Breeders' Academy as an annual member, you get it as part of the deal as an ebook.
So the
PDF.
yearly members automatically get the ebooks of both then, right?
Yeah, for both books.
Forgotten about that. I'm glad you
The
said
blue,
that again.
blue book too. And that you can get on Amazon. But a lot of people go, oh, I don't need his website. I got his book. No, the book is nice, but the book is nothing like the website. The Founders Program's not in it. There are so many videos. It's a nice book. I'm proud of it. It gets you started, gives you an idea about breeding and some of the factors that you need to learn and help you out.
A third of it is correlated with the website, but the other 2/3 is not existent.
A lot of this material in this book has been improved and enhanced, and they're on the website. So I improved it quite a bit. This just gives you a general idea about breeding. It gives you a general idea on mentalism, gives you a general idea on breeding methods. It's broken up into 4 sections. It's a good book. It is. It's worth getting. But if you think you don't need the website, no, I think you'd be surprised how good the website actually is.
Yeah, no comparison on those two whatsoever.
No.
And I've read both of them. I've read both books and the website, no comparison.
The book is like a study guide, I guess you could say, where the website is like a university.
Yeah.
The only difference is we're not testing you. There's no deadlines. You go at your
You
own
study when you
pace.
want.
Yeah, you learn what you want when you want. The only thing I suggest is I have some start here pages. I would go through those first. I would give you an idea how the website's set up, give you an idea on which program to study first. If you have any ideas about creating a strain or improving your strain, I think you're going to enjoy the website.
And if you've already got an established family, I'd recommend still taking them through the Founders Program from the beginning.
Yeah, actually I would.
Now, Giles is asking, where can he see the defects, the 89 defects? And I believe that's on the website.
Yeah, that's on the
is.
website. Yeah.
And pictures of each one of them, too.
Now, I will say this. The website goes more into explaining the defects and shows you how to improve them, how to get rid of them, how to eliminate them and improve the family.
Okay, so Kingdom Farms is asking, do you think other methods can get the job done in Gamefowl?
He's talking about breeding methods, I'm assuming. And I'll say this. A program is made up of multiple programs to be used at a particular stage that you're in. You just can't take like line breeding or one part of it and maintain a family like people think.
Yeah. Line breeding is not a breeding program. Inbreeding is not a breeding program. Like Frank said, it takes multiple methods of breeding to create a breeding program. Used at the right time for a specific length of time. So that's how the Founders Program is broken up.
I'm assuming that's what he meant on the method. If I'm wrong, let us know, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was talking
And
about.
then the website is set up with a bunch of programs and courses and videos that supports the Founders Program.
And it never stops. It's a constant circle, so to speak.
Yeah. It helps you create the family, purify the family, and maintain the family.
While improving.
Yeah. And continue to improve them even after that. Yeah. It's a fantastic program, and it's being used by all types of animals. Gamefowl, chickens, livestock, poultry, dogs, you name it. Everything. I can't believe all the different types of members I have in there. It cracks me up because some of the dog breeders say, oh, he's for chickens. That doesn't work for us. No, you'd be surprised.
Some things you have to tweak a little bit, but a breeding program is a breeding program.
Yeah. The website shows you whatever tweaking you need to do. The only difference is, I guess I wouldn't do an inbreeding for 5 or 6 generations in a row. But the kind of inbreeding that we're promoting for chickens, you can do easily for dogs. No problem.
Yeah. I wouldn't have a problem doing it. I'm ready to do it too. Matter of fact, I'm getting started this weekend. I'm taking my dog to a buddy's house, and hopefully she'll get with puppies and we can get the show on the road.
You talking about Shiva?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
She's in heat. She should be good and ready by this weekend. So hopefully everything's go good. And if not, I'll just give her a few days, take her back. But I'm going to get started on that as well.
I'm a chicken breeder. I'm a gamefowl breeder, actually. And so I never expected the Breeders' Academy to be used for anything other than that. I started getting domestic chickens in there, and I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden I started getting goats in there, and bees and guppies. And, and then
fish.
Fish. Plants.
Breeders.
Yeah, plant breeders are using it. And then all of a sudden I started getting dogs. I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I started doing coaching calls. And then they start getting back to me and telling me how well it's working for them. And
Genetics is genetics. You understand what you're breeding as far as the genetic side. Man, that's a big plus. Even in your selection, if you don't understand that stuff, it makes selection even harder.
Like you said, genetics is genetics. Nothing changes the law of heredity. The difference between, let's say, a gamefowl to a regular chicken or a chicken to a dog is that we're just selecting for different traits. We're still dealing with dominant, recessive, sex-linked, and polygenic traits. And occasionally we're dealing with incomplete and co-dominant traits. Once you understand that, and you understand which traits are which, then it helps you with your selection. But that's separate from the actual breeding program, the methods of breeding. That applies to all animals. So it doesn't matter whether you're breeding a dog, a chicken, or a gamefowl, the breeding methods work for all of them.
Yeah. Inbreeding, it can be a beautiful thing if used right. Wonderful tool.
Yeah.
A super tool.
Any other questions, Nancy?
Just one last question we have for you. Have we had any well-known breeders on our website?
Yeah. Would shock you too.
Dog breeders
shock you.
and chicken breeders and gamefowl breeders. And because of who they are, anonymity.
I'll say this. If you guys want to know who they are, listen to the way they talk. Ask them questions. They will tell you in so many words that they are a member.
I can't confirm or deny anything. I've told them I wouldn't say anything. I'm staying to my word, okay?
Buena Vista is saying it also works with racing pigeons.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same as the chickens. Quail, their little feathered buddies. Parakeets, whatever.
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up. I want to stay under 2 hours. I think we're going to be able to make that happen. And we'll be back next week.
Went pretty good. We didn't tear anything up, break anything, or
I don't know.
Make a complete fool out of
That's
myself.
not usually
So
my
we're
problem. My
pretty
problem is how bad do I piss people off? I don't know. I always seem to piss somebody off, okay?
good. That's not hard to do these days.
No, it's not hard to do
Oh
at
my
all.
gosh. I don't know if you guys want to tackle a weight question before we leave.
A weight like
question.
what the hell? Go ahead.
Okay, one last one for Giles here. If the broodcock is 2.1 kilograms and you want to produce stags that's 1.8 kilograms to 1.9 kilograms, what should be the hen pullet weight?
It's the wrong way of thinking of it. We're back to polygenic traits. This is simple, actually. Whenever we're doing polygenic traits, and my members are probably thinking, there he goes again, polygenic traits. It's a broken record. I get a lot of new people. I'm sorry. Anyways, so we're talking about weight. We look at the birds we have. Whenever you're dealing with polygenic traits, you're dealing with variation. So if you look at all the animals, in your case, chickens, all the chickens within your flock or your strain, you're going to see a variation. We're talking about weight. We're going to see some that are really heavy on one end of the population distribution chart here. And then we're going to have some that are really light. And then we're going to have a variation within them in the middle, which we call the mean, which means that at the highest level is the biggest number of birds that have a certain weight. Okay, so let's say that's 5 pounds. Then you have some that are really heavy that are 6 pounds. You have some really light that are 4 pounds. So we decide what weight we want. There's two things we got to consider. Is the trait a selectable trait? Is it a separate trait from, let's say, did he want to go heavier or lighter? Lighter. So we want to look for the birds that are the weight we want. So we look at all the birds that are in the weight range that we're looking for, and we breed those. A lot of times when we're trying to improve a trait, we're breeding to either the highest intensity or low intensity. So we're looking for the heaviest birds versus, let's say, the lightest birds. But in this case, I would say that I would look for birds that are right in the range that you want and only breed those. And over time, you'll get there. It's not going to happen in one breeding. We're talking about polygenic trait. This is something that happens over many generations. So you want to breed each generation that way and to the point where you get it. Now, anytime you add new blood or outside blood, you just changed everything. You started completely over. So you're going to have some discipline. You're going to have to know which birds to select. You're going to have to start weighing them and looking them over and finding the right birds to breed to. Just know that it takes a while to get there. Polygenic traits are multi-gene traits versus monogenic traits, which is dominant recessive. Monogenic traits, we either select for it or cull it. We're either breeding to it or breeding away from it. Polygenic traits, we're dealing with the intensity of the trait. So we're breeding to the highest intensity or lowest intensity. But in a lot of cases, when you're being very specific like you are, I would breed to the birds that are in that range. And in time, you'll get there.
Mine average about 6 ounces from each other.
Yeah, eventually you'll get there, though. You're going to get...
After a period of years, once you get that in there, they'll be within that group.
Now, the hardest part for him is that he's talking about a very specific weight. You're going to have to wait till they're mature to select them. So you're going to have to wait till they're like 2 years old to select them.
And then watch their diet to make sure they're not overly fat or under fat. That's the key right there, is getting them to where you know they've got the correct weight on. Because they could just be fat. And you think, oh, they're too big and they'd be too fat. When you put down on the weight they should be by nutrition, they might be just right.
The more inbred they are, not only are the chances you get in there are better, but the more inbred they are, the chances of you keeping that trait is better too.
Yeah.
Record keep it so that you can look back at your record and say, okay, this is why they're too fat because this is how much feed I fed them. Or this is why they're underweight because this is what I fed them. Or even the type of brand of feed that you fed them. So if you keep a good record of all of that, you can manage their weight much better.
And two, they need to learn the feel of the birds to where they know they're too fat or they're too skinny.
That's true.
That comes in handy with the knowledge part of it. Know your birds. That's the biggest thing, is know your birds. And the more time you spend with them, the more you're going to find out about them.
But also select for the complete package too. I know that weight's really important to you, but make sure they have the right conformation of body, they're free of defects. Hatch as many chicks as you can manage and afford so that you have a better selection. Select for the traits you're interested in, but also select for the complete package so you're not messing up other things too. Which means by the time you get there, by the time they get 2 years old, you're going to have less birds to select from. You want to breed to them all anyway, so you're going to have a very low number, but you're going to have the best birds. You're going to get there quicker by selecting the right birds.
It's like any other trait. It takes you a while to get there, but if you put in the wrong bird, miss the whole thing up, all your work.
And don't add outside blood.
Please.
Don't outcross, okay?
If he's a member, he won't.
Yeah, we can help you keep track of that too. We can do coaching calls from time to time and make sure you're on the right track. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. Any last words, you guys, before we wrap it up?
No, we're wrapping it up.
Okay, so we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you guys coming. We're back on track. Awesome.
Good to see you all. Bye.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye. Welcome to the after show. This is the part of the show that doesn't exist. What happens in the after show stays in the after show. If you've mentioned to your friends about the after show, which happens from time to time, no worries. Just tell them not to let out our little secret area of the show. Enjoy!
Someone who says they sell their best birds, they're either lying or they're not progressing their family. Let's put it that way.
No.
Would you say that to be true in the first and second, or maybe even the third stage?
That's a good question.
I wouldn't think they would still have really good quality in the first and second stages.
That's a really good question, actually. You can go now.
I told him earlier, God, Kenny, I'm really tired. If I nudge your leg, that means I'm going to...
You just gave out our secret.
I'm bailing out.
I'm going to bail out.
So if you see us go to commercial, she's going to be gone when we
I'm
come back.
bailing out. But no, I'm hanging in there.
Okay.
Nancy's going to be gone.
That's a really good question, but I'll say the same thing, that The same thing holds true, that if you're in the first few stages of the Founders Program, yes, you're still looking for the standouts, everything I said. Yes, you're going to have a lot of variation with those offspring, definitely. But as long as you're honest in telling them where you're at and what they're made of and all that kind of stuff, and that they're not your foundation, but they are good representatives of the breed still, they don't have the poor qualities we were talking about, then as long as you're honest with the buyer, then I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, it never fails. If you go here, say back 20 years ago, and it's still the same way, and you go to this guy that's got, say, 400 or 500 head of gamefowl, he's always got this particular yard that he says, now, nothing over here is for sale. Now, everything over here is for sale, but nothing over here is for sale. And it's always a bigger proportion on the side that he won't sell that it will sell. So what they're doing is basically everything they've culled out that they don't want, they put on the for sale yard. And that's pretty much how they sell. And people's buying what they don't want, because like Kenny said, you go to somebody's house and you go, where's your brood pens? Oh, they're over there. Let's go over there and sell me this one. No, I sell that. If they go on in and get it, it's yours for the money. They're raising chickens. They're not a breeder.
That's a telltale sign if they're willing to sell their best birds. They either don't really understand what they're doing because they think, oh, I'll just reproduce them and get more of them later. I can reproduce those birds. It's not as easy as you think, for one thing. And you could be we talk about like genetic drift, where a disease can come and wipe out a good number of your birds. A lot of times it takes your good birds too. That changes the direction of where your strain was going and the looks and everything about them. So if you want someone to come and pick out your best birds and walk away with them, it's going to change the direction of your strain.
I wonder too if sometimes, and I'm being so sneaky tonight, I wonder too if some people...
If you keep making sense like this, I'm going to kick you out of here.
I'm making your life a little hard tonight.
You're making me work.
You're going to say, I'm not taking you out to dinner after this.
I'm taking you out to dinner? I didn't know that.
No, you're not.
Oh, wow.
You are now.
I think I am now.
If I too could, I'm a good girl. No, okay. I wonder if some of them do this, and you guys would know this more than me, but they have their yard full of chickens, and they've got the ones that they're willing to sell over on one side, and they've got their brood fowl that the buyer can see from a distance, and they claim that's their brood fowl, but what their real brood fowl is behind closed doors where nobody can see them. I mean, as a selling tactic. Okay, you don't want any of these? If you want my brood fowl and it's my best stuff,
sure.
This is going to be pricey. You know what I mean? When actuality, their brood fowl is behind closed doors where you can't see it.
Yeah.
I've had them tell me that. They'll walk over to a certain side and they'll go, now, these are not for sale, but let me take you over here. Now, these are some good chickens. What about these? No, those are not for sale. These right here's for sale. Okay, all right, I'll sell them to you. I've had people actually laugh and make jokes that they actually done that. Really.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just use it, like Nancy said, as a selling tool.
I don't sell birds anymore, but when I did, I would take people through the yard, and I did have birds I would sell, and ones that were part of my breeding program, and they weren't for sale for any price. If you are enjoying the show and would like to learn more, I encourage you to join me at the Breeders Academy. By becoming a member, I can help you to achieve the competitive advantage.